What movies and TV shows are popular today? Superhero movies like Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, and the Avengers have made a strong impact in the movie world. Then there's Star Wars and Star Trek, Hunger Games and Game of Thrones, Once Upon a Time, Supernatural, and Revolution. Then there are those doctor, lawyer, and cop shows that are in abundance, crammed full of attractive men and women all into one show. There is a huge fad of unbelievable TV and movies. From superheroes to vampires, werewolves to fairy tales, TV and movies sometimes seem to make us wish we were superheroes or vampires or werewolves or even living in the town of Storybrooke. These shows help us get lost in the story, and we invest in the characters, and we cry and get upset when one of our favorite characters gets written off. When I was watching The Avengers, I have to admit that I thought for a split second about how cool it would be to be Iron Man. When I watched the TV show Once Upon a Time, I have to admit that I thought about how cool it would be to live in the town that it takes place in, Storybrooke, and see fairy tales come to life that I grew up with watching and reading about. Do I actually believe these stories and characters could happen in real life? No. But I think that this is the joy of these stories. And we get into these stories in books and movies and TVs because it takes you away to some far-off land and we can use our imagination. When I think of our world today, I see a lot of things that happen that I just can't believe. In sports, there are plays that are just completely unbelievable. Did that really just happen? As many of y'all may remember, a couple years back, I remember seeing the replays of the University of Georgia player, the running back, Noshawn Marino, hurdle over a defender who was standing up straight. Is that even possible? Those of us who have seen Usain Bolt run in the Olympics or another event wonder, can a human being really run that fast? Is that even possible? I remember last September, watching my Atlanta Braves play and seeing them come back from their rivals, the Phillies, being down 4 runs in the 9th inning. And my beloved Chipper Jones comes up to the plate and hits a home run to win the game. This was his last home run of his entire career. Did that really just happen? There are things that have happened to you as parents. When your child first begins to talk, first begins to walk, moves to a big boy or big girl bed, begins playing their first sport, starts to cheer or dance or sing, first day of school, and even finally using that toilet and getting rid of those diapers that you don't want in your household. Then there are times in the news when we are completely struck with a huge blow of a tragedy. We are left thinking, I can't believe someone would even think of doing something like that. Then there is also the times where we think, how is that person able to save those people? Or most recently, how could that football player, Manti Te'o, be tricked into dating somebody that's fake? There are things that happen to us that are hard to believe, even when we see it happen. What do you think was going through the minds of Peter, James, and John on that mountaintop with Jesus? I have a story that may show some of those thought patterns going on. This is a story of the Transfiguration coming from our trusted pal, Peter. His story starts as they walk up the mountain and in his thoughts. Wow, how awesome it is that Jesus picked me and James and John to go up on this mountaintop with him. We must be really close friends since the rest of our group is left at the bottom of the mountain. It must have been what I said earlier. I had the great answer to his question. He asked us, who do we say that Jesus is? And my answer was that you are the Messiah. I wonder if he invited me up here because he was flattered with me calling him the Messiah. Did I actually say that? Do I actually believe that? Well, yes, I do. I have to. After everything I have seen and heard him say, I have to believe this is the man that the Scriptures speak of. But what if he's not? He is still an amazing teacher, a worker of miracles. Some of the things he has done, I can't believe, but I saw them happen. He calmed the storm while we were in the boat crossing the lake. Jesus even sent the demon out of that woman. Then there are the healings of the ill, the blind, and the lame, and even the feeding of all those people just a few days ago. Wow, why couldn't Jesus pick a smaller mountain to climb today? This is such a long climb. I have even learned from Jesus. I have learned so much from Jesus. We have done so much good work. I have seen Jesus heal so many people. But what about my father and family? I just left them. I wonder how the fishing is today. I hope they are okay. I know this is where I'm supposed to be, but I still miss them and worry about them. We finally made it. It looks like Jesus is going to pray. I bet he won't even notice if we try to rest our eyes just a bit. James and John look just as tired as I am. So Peter, James, and John start to doze off, but they try their best to stay awake with Jesus as he is praying. After a couple of nodding offs, Peter finally nods himself awake and shakes himself awake and sees, and is still very sleepy. But he glances up at Jesus and sees that he is there with two others, all shining and radiant. But Jesus was shining the brightest. Peter is now wide awake and rouses both James and John. They don't know where these two men came from. They just appeared. They glance at each other to see if they are seeing the same things as one another. Peter gets up and rushes to Jesus. When Peter is about to ask Jesus who these two men are, something comes to him and it clicks, and instead asks, "Is this Moses and Elijah?" And Jesus nods. "Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." Then a cloud came over them, and Peter thought, "Where's this weather coming from? It's so weird. There wasn't a cloud in the sky when we were walking up here." Then there was a voice that came in that cloud. "This is my son, my chosen. Listen to him." The cloud leaves and Jesus is there alone. Moses and Elijah have vanished. Peter can't believe this happened, but he was there. He saw it. That was the voice of God. It had to be. Jesus is the Son of God. Okay, so this story was one of mine. As I tried to wonder this week what was going on the mind of Peter, James, and John during this experience, I think that this experience that Peter, James, and John was hard to believe, but they saw it happen. It happened in front of their faces. They saw Moses and Elijah. They saw Jesus shine and his features become transfigured, change, become holy. They heard the voice of God proclaim Jesus to be the Son of God. But who would believe them? This transfiguration scripture in Luke parallels with the scripture we read earlier from Exodus. Moses was in the presence of God, and his skin was shining after he talked with God. Jesus was talking to God and was proclaimed as God's Son and was shining. His clothes were dazzling white. They both climbed a mountain to speak with God. They both came down to less than ideal situations because of their followers. This parallel is another statement of the holiness of Jesus. Moses was considered a holy man in Judaism. Peter, James, and John were very aware and attuned to the story of Moses and his holiness. You would think they would make that connection as they were experiencing it. But being disciples, it always seems that Jesus has to explain things multiple times before they actually get it. Peter was too focused on doing something to mark this special occasion, this special experience, this special, holy mountaintop experience, that he almost forgot to experience it. He was too busy taking a picture, trying to paint a picture to make this place holy instead of just experiencing the holy. The three, James, Peter, and John, almost missed this experience completely. They were so tired and were about to fall asleep and miss everything that happened on that mountaintop. The hike up the mountain must have been really hard. Jesus praying must have been a normal event, and they were just used to it. That's just Jesus. He was praying again. They didn't think they would miss anything at all. It was one of those moments. It was in this moment of slumber and sleep that they experienced the presence of God in one of the most holy times of their lives. I find that the times I truly experience God are the times I do not expect it. I've experienced God's love when a child who usually does not greet me or even give me nice looks comes up and says my name and gives me a big hug. I've experienced the love of God and helping of our neighbors and loving our neighbors in the middle of an upward game. When a kid from a different game sees someone fall down and runs to grab him a bag of ice. I have experienced God when I have received unexpected letters and postcards of encouragement. I have experienced God through sharing of a meal with others. There are so many more times I have been surprised or not looking to see or experience God and have been there on my slumber, being awakened with the experience of God. So what does Transfiguration Sunday mean for us? We celebrate and remember the day that Jesus was proclaimed as the Son of God and God's chosen one. I would also say it reminds us to be ready and willing to be surprised by the presence of God. Let us try to be willing to stop and experience those God moments, those mountaintop experiences, instead of taking a picture of the experience and letting that get in the way of truly experiencing God's presence. So wake up, be ready, find your mountaintop this week.